Greetings from Stanford University. I'm Bill Barnett, professor at the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability and the Stanford Graduate School of Business.
And I'm Sophia Qin, a sophomore at Stanford University studying in economics and mathematics with a particular interest in environmental economics.
And I'm Rosemary Knight, a professor in the Geophysics department in the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability, and I'm a senior fellow at the Woods Institute for the Environment.
Well, and Rosemary, thank you so much for coming on our podcast, and you listeners. Rosemary, along with Professor Fiorenza Vicali, ran a conference on Pulse of the Planet. And Rosemary, what are your takeaways from that conference?
My takeaway is we have a lot of people out there very excited about taking the pulse of the planet. So finding innovative ways of using existing sensors or developing new sensors to figure out how our planet is operating and how can we map, monitor what's happening in order to optimally manage the health of the planet. So a lot of people with very innovative ideas, this intersection between science and engineering, great new technology, great new advances in data science.
And to follow up, Professor Rosemary, what made you want to host this conference? Why is this topic so pressing in current society?
Well, I think we all recognize we are facing tremendous challenges with climate change and figuring out how to live sustainably on this planet. But I'm also very optimistic because over the last decade, we've seen an explosion in new technology, the development of new sensors. We've also seen tremendous advancements in data science, and it's this intersection of data science and sensor technology that allows us to take the data that are being acquired by satellites from aircraft, on water, on land, take all those data that are being acquired and turn them into actionable data to support actions, to support decision-making, to support, for example, what I do, the management of our fresh water to achieve sustainable outcomes. So it's this magical moment in time where there's this awareness that we need to do a better job of adaptively managing the intersection of planetary health and human activities, but you can't manage what you can't measure. And it's this moment in time when our capacity to measure is just phenomenal. So how do we tap into that?
That is exciting.
Exciting.
So you had a number of different, you had folks from all over the world at the conference. What was the biggest surprise to you, Rosemary?
We had an editor from Nature there, and his biggest surprise, and similarly, it was my biggest surprise a few months ago, though, was the innovation in terms of developing inexpensive sensors. So traditionally, we have had satellites circling the globe, which have the advantage of the spatial coverage and the repeated sampling of parts of the globe. But inevitably, you need ground-based or water-based sensors to help calibrate your satellite measurements and to help improve the accuracy of predictions that you make using those data. Well, these ground-based sensors can be very expensive to, first of all, deploy and then maintain. An example is a stream gauge that measures the discharge of water in a stream. It can cost $100,000 to put a stream gauge in. And it can cost $100,000 a year for technical support to go out and maintain those stream gauges. So it's no surprise that there are many parts of the world that don't have the number of ground-based sensors that would be optimal for taking the pulse of the planet. There are engineers at Stanford and elsewhere around the world that are really focusing on how can we bring down the cost? How can we make robust sensors that we can deploy all over by reducing the cost and increasing the resilience or the robustness of these sensors. And so that was really exciting to see, just the innovation in this particular niche of reducing the cost.
So Rosemary, you mentioned fresh water at the end there. There's so many themes. Pulse of the planet, very broad topic. What is it about fresh water that makes you focus on that?
So I've been focusing on fresh water for quite a while now because fresh water is essential for human life. It's essential for supporting our natural ecosystems. And over the last decade in my own research, there have been such tremendous advancements in sensors deployed on satellites, in aircraft, that are allowing us to truly start understanding the functioning of our freshwater systems. Of particular interest in my work is a sensor that's deployed on a helicopter that allows us to image groundwater systems up to 300 meters below the ground surface. So it's the equivalent of MRI scanning through the human brain. We can scan through these groundwater systems, figuring out what's happening as we scroll down below the ground surface. There's a satellite that we've shown gives us the equivalent of functional MRI, where functional MRI, parts of the brain light up in response to cognitive processes. We have satellite images now that light up where the water from the snowmelt in the Sierras gets down into the sediments of the Central Valley and refills our groundwater system. So it's just a very exciting time with the sensors that are available to start understanding the structure of our groundwater systems, the connection between our snowmelt, our rivers, and our groundwater. We're just starting to map it all out and understand ways that we can truly protect the functioning of these systems to benefit not just people, but the ecosystem.
Super inspiring. That's super inspiring.
Wow. So we've discussed, the importance of measuring and the recent breakthroughs, including cost reduction. Is there anything else you would like to add on, Professor Rosemary?
I would like to add that we now have a new initiative at Stanford called Taking the Pulse of the Planet that's bringing together not just the research in this area, but teaching courses in this area. And so last year I taught a course where students are working with these satellite data sets and discovering from themselves. I start off by saying, I'm not telling you CO2 is increasing in the atmosphere. I'm not telling you it's getting warmer. I'm not telling you precipitation is changing. They work with the satellite data with Python code and code that we give them to work with, and they can download these huge data sets and see for themselves how things are changing on the planet. So I love the whole element of bringing students into this and empowering students, letting them see that there are these tremendous sources of data now that they can tap into, that they can use to better understand the functioning of this planet and how we can come to sustainable solutions.
My goodness. And those students, including you, Sophia, are the future for whom the sustainability efforts are devoted. And so let me thank you, Professor Rosemary Knight. Let me thank you, Sophia Qin. And by the way, good luck on your finals coming up.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on despite that. And to you listeners at home, until next time.
And can I just say, if you're interested, there's a website, takingthepulseoftheplanet.stanford.edu.
I love it.
The Stanford Initiative on Business and Environmental Sustainability podcast series is sponsored by the Stanford Graduate School of Business and the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability. Music by Charged Particles. That's Caleb Hutzler, Mike Rock, and John Krosnick.